Fight week is here and UFC 289 is this weekend, and it is set to be one of the worst cards of the year. But there's still a couple of interesting fights, and Mark and I are going to make our predictions for those fights. But before we do that, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe as we have brand new videos every single week. But let's get into it. For the main event, we have Amanda Nunes versus Aldana. Mark, what's your prediction for this fight and why?
It's so hard to go against Nunes, isn't it? Especially with, even if it was Pena, like it originally was planned, it's so hard to bet against Nunes. She's billed as the female GOAT for a reason, and it feels like they've picked Aldana out just because it's another fighter and because there's a couple of knockouts on a highlight reel. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I feel like it's impossible to pick against Nunes, isn't it? Yeah, I will bet against her, obviously, because the odds will be juicy, but, and she did lose recently to Pena, so maybe there's a chance, but it seems very, very unlikely, doesn't it? It's like you're saying, it feels like this is just, right, who's available? Let's just feed them to Nunes. And that kind of leads me on to my next question. This was originally supposed to be Nunes versus Pena, and at least there was some history between the fights. This would be the trilogy, and I'm not saying it's necessarily a fight I wanted to see, but at least there was a reason for them to be fighting. Do you feel like this is just now another lamb to the slaughter for Nunes?
Yeah, to be honest, and to be very blunt about it, I do. It almost feels exactly like you said then, like they're saying, well, we need a replacement. Oh, Aldana, she's got a couple of knockouts. We'll throw her up there. And look, maybe I'll end up eating my words, but I don't care how good someone says a boxing is and all that kind of stuff. You're up against Nunes, who, honestly, do you think, she could actually, withstand a good chance of beating her? Even Juliana Pena, Dwain, she beat her once, but compared to her, the striking level and everything looks extremely sloppy. It looks like, like she's wearing ice skates for some reason, or there's just banana skins in the ring for her to fall on her arse on. It just doesn't seem to match up stylistically.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see a path to victory for Aldana here, really. But, I know you were saying I don't care about her boxing and stuff, but she is a good striker. So there is that chance, and maybe she can catch Nunes and maybe she can knock her out. But it's just that it's all maybe. And I just don't see it happening this time, really. But, we've been wrong before. Well, I have many, 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 many times.
Almost every prediction video, we are wrong, Dwain. So let's face it, if you're listening to this, bet the house on Aldana because we've said Nunes is going to win.
But, right, so let's move on to what's the co-main event, but probably the most exciting fight on the card. We have Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. Mark, what's your prediction for this fight and why?
I honestly think we're going to see Beneil Dariush knock Charles Oliveira out. I think this is not going to be a grapple-heavy match, even though, that's how they both build. I think they're going to keep it stood up. Charles gets hit a lot. He seems to get dropped quite a lot. It's almost like it's a must-have in his fights. What do you think will happen?
Yeah, I am leaning Beneil Dariush, and I think I agree with you. I'm not sure if he's necessarily going to get a knockout, but I think he's not afraid of that grappling defense that Oliveira has, or grappling offense that Oliveira has. So that allows Charles to kind of throw wild and interesting strikes. So it doesn't matter if he gets caught. But sometimes I wonder, are we forgetting who Charles Oliveira is? He has one bad fight against Islam, and then we're all so quick to write him off. And, not just you and I, but it feels like the whole sort of MMA community has gone, oh, well, Oliveira's done now. We've got the game plan to see him lose. But, let's not forget who Islam Makhachev is. And, and let's not forget who Beneil Dariush is. His best win is Tony Ferguson. Let's not forget that. We need to see how good Beneil is going to be when he takes that big step up in competition. And there is no bigger step up than this. Do you think that Beneil will be able to come in and he'll be able to handle that pressure and be able to fight such a high-level fighter the way he has? Or do you think that we're just going to go say, oh, okay, here's another contender that's pushed back down?
I think Beneil will shine under the bright lights of a co-main event, especially a fight of this that is this important. Is a cat's cock air away from a title shot is Beneil Dariush. And if he can get through Charles Oliveira, I'm pretty sure he's got it. The interesting point there that you were saying about let's not forget who Charles Oliveira is. To play the devil's advocate with that, a few years ago, it went all too long ago that he was like very hit and miss with his fights. You know, he got knocked out quite a bit. He ended up, I hate the word quit, but he had to stop the action, should I say, a few times, that kind of thing. Then he ended up clawing his way back. Don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from him. He's got great wins and stuff, but, you know, he got dropped quite heavily with Dustin Poirier, got a lot of damage. He was wearing a lot on his face. Michael Chandler gave him a lot of damage. Obviously, since then, we know that he lost the title belt. And Justin Gaethje, you know, he was swinging for the fences as well. It's very possible, but his recovery is so good. He's had more comebacks than Michael Myers. It's ridiculous, you know.
And yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? Oliveira's jiu-jitsu allows him to be so offensive, because if he gets caught, he just drops back and he knows that they're not going to come into his guard. But that was his massive downfall when he fought Islam, because Islam can just, well, I don't care, mate. I'm just as good as you on the ground, probably better. And then is that going to be the same with Beneil? And that's what I really, really, not worry, but it's what I'm concerned about is Beneil at that level? Because we see it time and time and time again. We go, well, this guy's elite, he's amazing. But then you look at who he's fought, and then they take that big step up to the top 5. And I think people forget that top 5 of almost any division is pure killers. These are the elite of the elite. And then they take that step up and then they drop back down instantly. Like, look at Rafael Fiziev. It felt like so many of us were writing off Justin Gaethje and forgetting who these guys are. And then he got battered. You know, I mean, fine, it's not a total domination or anything, but you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I forgot how good Justin is. And I wonder if that's going to be a similar thing here today. But Mark, let's talk a little bit about the actual card itself and why this card's so disappointing. It feels like it's a 2-fight card. And to be honest, I don't even really care about the main event. So for me, it's a 1-fight card. Do you think the UFC just seems to have this real problem of putting on decent cards as of late?
Well, I mean, if you include the 2 events coming after 289, 290, we'll be singing the UFC's praises in a future video, I think. It's a strange one, really, isn't it? Because even 288, that was Cejudo versus Sterling. That wasn't the strongest card at all. And do you remember a lot of people were saying Gilbert Burns and Belal Muhammad, they actually saved the card. Belal Muhammad saved a card. Imagine that statement there, Dwayne. That's how piss poor that card was, that Belal Muhammad saved it.
We get it, Matt. We get it.
You get what I mean, though? I'm going to flip this table. You get what I mean?
No, but I agree. And that's the thing, isn't it? You've got these such lackluster cards that you're looking forward to Belal Muhammad. That's the thing. I want to keep saying his name, but it's true. And it's not good enough, is it? And I think the big problem is it's all these damn fight nights. There's so many of them just spread out. You think, well, we've just had Kai Kara France fight. Why is he not on this card? We had Anthony Smith and Johnny Walker. Why don't we move them all up? Why are we having these lackluster fight nights that nobody cares about? We've just had Jim Miller come out and, you know, he's got the most fights ever in UFC. Stick him on a pay-per-view. We love Jim Miller. Why is he on a fight night? And it's such a waste and it's such a shame and it's really, really disappointing. But as disappointing as this card is, Mark, is there anything else for you on this card that's of any interest?
Honestly, there's Dan Ige versus Nate the Train. Now, I'm not necessarily making a prediction for this fight itself, but just presuming that Nate the Train wins, it's worth tuning in just for his post-fight interview. He is funny. He will have you on the edge of the seat. He will have you laughing. What was it he said that time before? He said, I think I've still got a job after that performance. That kind of thing. And obviously the return of Dan Ige as well. Khalil Roundtree, he's on this card as well, which could be interesting because he has some extremely heavy hands. You know, it can go either way. It can go both ways. You know, he's not just a straight up killer, but it's an interesting point in this card. But I think just touching on your point earlier, when we're digging this deep for points of interest in a card, it's probably not that good of a card anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, it is not a good card, and it's a real shame. But like we said, there's a couple of interesting fights on here, and maybe it might be a surprise. But I do think that's all we've got time for. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help us out.